Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. My friends out there, please do check out our other videos on the channel. It's been a week since the last video. Unbelievable. Work is taking a lot of my time, but here we are in the late evening here in the UK. For once it's raining. Do you know what? It's been absolutely blistering here in England, particularly the last few weeks, so the rain is welcomed. But that point aside, we're trying to swing back into a load of videos. We're going to focus today on XDC, XinFin's XDC. The last video we did was 3 weeks ago, can you believe it, on XDC. Trada, this whole aspect of the trade tokenomics through trade tech, very interesting indeed. I loved covering that topic, and clearly a lot of other people did as well. So we're just going to touch up on a couple of things around XDC XinFin and also a couple of things that have happened since then. So actually, ironically, after this particular video, we did have this announcement here back on the 2nd of August. Crypto Area is actually one of the first YouTubers I started watching a few years back, particularly just before the pandemic actually, where I started to get really influenced into the crypto market, and she was for sure very inspirational to me in regards to my development, knowledge and excitement towards this space. And this particular point here was just picked up from Impel. If you remember, these guys very much partnered and integrated with XinFin, part of this ISO protocol as well, of the 222 standardization. This is very interesting. This was around the bridging and wrapping of Bitcoin. Now, there was some interesting rumors a few weeks back where people were saying that Bitcoin ISO compliant or not, and I do believe that a lot of that conversation came from this element, not specifically this message, but in generalization of like what is actually going on here. Now, we must remember, and I will do a video, I tell you, on Bitcoin, not from a stance of prices and things like this, but all my knowledge and expertise throughout when I was learning my diploma for cryptography and blockchain, but also more importantly the actual technological aspects of Bitcoin, why it's so important to the whole system, certainly the decentralized system as well. And we'll touch on that in a bit more detail. But for this particular point, this is where I see the alignment of the ISO compliance with Bitcoin through the likes of this. So this is developing. So the one bridge here is a collection of like 3 or 4 different projects. And this is absolutely brilliant. And this is what the space was about, to identify the problems and overcome regulatory issues around the world, and build systems that will affect both the public and the private sectors in one hit. And we know what Bitcoin's value is. We know that it's a huge store of value, but it's also behind it a significant technology and ability, as essentially it was the beginning days of cryptography. So I'm really excited to have seen this particular article. I'm sorry we didn't cover it a bit earlier than before, but for me this is very, very interesting indeed. And just again emphasizing that point that we're so early with everything, that we're just seeing the implications of like interoperability and bridging of various different projects and technologies. And I think this is going to have a significant impact in the years to come, to have Bitcoin as a wrapped asset on the XDC network. This is a really big stepping stone for sure. How Bitcoin plays into the trade market is going to be quite interesting. I would very much interested to see that. Well, I don't mean by trade market, I don't mean actual traders. I'm talking about the actual trade market itself around the world. And clearly there is a space for Bitcoin there, and utilizing a powerhouse, a phenomenal project like XinFin and XDC tokenization and wrapping methods. We've got to understand that this is very early, but we're seeing some significant signs of things that will be coming. We know that by 2025, potentially around November time 2025, we will have the switching off of the existing Swift chat systems and all of these, and being replaced with the new systems, including the ISO messaging service of 222 standardization. this will coincide with the likes of these kind of projects that we cover, the likes of Quant, for example, Algorand, Hedera, Hashgraph, XRP's Ripple, of course, and as well Stellar, Lumens. These are just probably a handful of ones that will be added to this scenario of the ISO compliance. But when it comes to trade finance, this is where I want to really see the interesting moves of how Bitcoin will affect through the wrapping method into the trade sphere. So there's some big things to come. There's a couple of quotations here I'm just picking out on the screen to read while I talk. But yeah, of course, CEO and co-founder of Trade Tech here, and we also had Andre Custerman, absolutely fantastic guy. I've spoken to him a couple of times, and it's clear as day that XDC is one of the significant chosen asset classes and technologies, i.e. XinFin, behind this to power this phenomenal market of trillions upon trillions of dollars worth. As I said, I'm really excited to see the future developments over the next few years of these two in particular, but also the other aspects of what we just mentioned as well. But other than that, guys, since that announcement back at the beginning of August, there hasn't been any major sort of significant updates from XinFin or XDC respectively. We did have the weekly update, but nothing major in there other than perhaps, I guess, something quite significant of the XDPOS, so this proof of staking mechanism 2.0, the updates on that. So we'll cover that in the next video for sure as we get more information on that. But in general, we fight on with XDC. We'll have a look at the price actually right now, because I just want to reiterate a couple of points of where we are today and where we consider ourselves to be in the near future for the likes of XDC. So let's whack that on the screen. I'm just going to get rid of all the other prices on here, and that just reminds me how many videos I need to do this week. But we can see here, I'm going to do this in reversal today. The performance indicators on the right hand side here are showcasing a 1% increase, in positivity on the weekly, and this 18% up on the month. This is absolutely brilliant. This actually, if you look back here, the news of which broke about Bitcoin's wrapping and a couple of other events as well took XDC up to some very nice moves. In fact, let's just quickly scale that up on the price range just to see how much of the move that really was. A good 38%, which is very respectable. And actually, even from this bottom point here, back on the 30th of June, a good 68, nearly 70% increase. We're on the way down. But what's really interesting is we're approaching these areas where we drew in before in the last video actually, and these were areas of interest to me to keep an eye on the stabilization, but also potential support levels. If you remember that conversation, we had 2 buy orders in. I've still got those in, by the way, because I still think that the world's very crazy out there. I will always have these USDT orders in the background. But right now, importantly, if you are new to XDC or you're looking for entry points, we always mention on this channel about DCAing. This is dollar cost averaging, meaning that you don't just chuck all your money in when you get paid or you're new to the space. Do it in guess drips and drabs. Like the ability of DCA allows you to play the market, if you like, in terms of trying to get the best positions possible without putting too much of a risk mentality into it. So for example, what we mean by that is, so the top points up here, I don't tend to buy things when on the uprise. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. When it comes on the way down, we need to understand a couple of approach points. So I'm just going to draw these in as if you're new to XDC. You might be. A good entry point actually, ironically, was yesterday, but we can keep an eye on this area for sure. This is on this fib retracement level here, sat at literally just over 3 cents. This puts us in line with this area here and these areas back here in June/July respectively. And way back, unfortunately, this particular chart doesn't go all the way back, but we did have previous points around these areas a year or so ago as well. So from right now in this macro level, we can understand that this is becoming a resistance area. It doesn't mean it's over. It means that we're probably going to have to come and retest this. But we might also retest these lower areas as well, not just because the fib levels are there. These are just generic guidelines, if you like, of positions. You can go around these lines, of course, but this is just basically taken from the top levels and some of the macro levels. But you can also see the longer term ones here, which show you an element of the longevity of a project. So we're looking at like maybe a month to 3 month cycle on the longer ones here. And you can see that's quite evident because this touch up point only just about went slightly above the long-term red line that we see here, indicating that we're not quite ready to push ourselves up. So on the macro level, you can clearly see, all I've done for this video, by the way, is drag from here to over here. The actual remaining of the chart stays the same, which proves my point that actually traders and the like are very much heavily focused on these particular areas. So you can see here, we touched this, literally went straight. Go and check the previous video. I haven't moved anything else on the top line. It's just the bottom line to drag it across to showcase this. You can see this is just tipped on here, 3.7 cents. Now it's on its way back down. We're playing around with this area. It rejected back here at 3.1 cents, and now it's floating around 3.4. So in my mind, we're still at this barrier. I do still think we might come back down to these areas eventually, maybe over the next few days or into next week. But equally, there is an opportunity where we might stabilize and magnetize ourselves around here to try and push us up again. It's all about the bull and the bear markets right now, but we've got to understand that overall the market is still in bear mode, despite the fact that we are seeing very small improvements from prices a month ago. But we have to also appreciate what's going on the world around us. Okay, so inflation's, rate hikes, fuel, energy, all of this stuff, right? So a lot of people are putting their money into crypto and things like Bitcoin and other aspects of stock markets because they're just fed up with the existing systems. They don't want their money in the banks. They want to safeguard it somewhere, hopefully try and make some money out of it. This is what you might start seeing a bit more of in the coming months, as well as just being in general a negative market. So all I can say as well is individual projects like XDC here, for example, have showcased something really significant, and you do see the price fluctuations even in these bad markets. So there's always opportunities. For me, I'm not selling XDC, no way, until we get to some really significant prices. My first sort of sell-off will be way back up here. From the original prices. I mean, I've been buying, I'll openly admit, I've been buying XDC at 15 cents, at 10 cents, at 3 cents, 4 cents, particularly around these areas because I'm a huge fan of XDC. I think it's an absolute powerhouse in the making. So there's great opportunities. We're still in lower areas, so don't be too disheartened if you didn't get down here. We may still come back to these areas, but in general, there's still good opportunity. I mean, the gigantic difference between 1 cent is not huge. But of course it depends on how much you accumulate each time. So that's a certain interesting buy area as we touched it yesterday, but I do think we need to come and retest this because this isn't enough times, in my opinion, to really push a structural upward trend. So there's that area and this area down here as well, only because we have had, for example, the failure here which brought us back down to this level, but we see this uprising and it's literally like a magnet across this whole period. So you could argue from the 16th of June to the 4th of August, we've been testing this area. I still think it might be worth potentially holding out for one more push down to here, just in case. We'll have to keep an eye on it, but for now, this is an area to look out for in the next few days, in my opinion. We'll have to see if that plays out, but certainly this could be a longer term one, maybe over the next couple of weeks. But it all depends on how we react to this area. As I said, 1, 2, can't really count that one to be honest just yet, but it's only had 2 tests of this area, so that's why I'm focused on it. And the last couple of points, just to reiterate, the RSIs, we're still in a nice buying mode of XDC despite it tailing off the last 3 or 4 days. So we just need to keep an eye on that. The RSIs went up super high, all the way up to around 75. So if you were getting back at these lower areas around 20, you've made some good profits if you have been selling. Fantastic. Well done to you guys. But for me, as I said, I'm not quite ready to jump back into XDC. Its current prices, I want to see a bit more stabilization. We're currently on an RSI 14 day at 60, so that's still quite high for me personally, and the 28 days is showing a bit of a middle ground. So if we can get that 14 day back to maybe around 42 to 40, I'd be very interested to jump back into XDC on a manual level, other than the ones that I've put in, as I said, at these lower regions already in my limit orders. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. But generally interested, guys, your comments about XDC. How are you feeling in this bear market about this particularly amazing project? What's your goals? Like, are you looking for short-term gains? Are you looking for long-term like I am? I'm just basically trying to accumulate as much XDC as I possibly can, but being in a sensible manner. For me, I'm always said that 2025 is a significant year for me, in my opinion, for all of the crypto sphere and the way the world is going. And I do think I would probably make some significant sell-offs in that year at some point. But certainly for the next like 10-15 years, it's going to be absolutely gigantic. We're so early in this. And my opinion, honestly, despite all the projects that I hold over 30 different assets, maybe even 40 different assets, XDC in my mind, bar probably like Quant and a couple of others, this is probably the one I'm most excited about. When I first heard about it, when I first did the intro videos about it as well, it's the one that stood out for me the most, to be so unique in the way that it does everything, and what it can achieve, and the solution base. It grabbed me, I have to say, but I didn't grab enough of it when I could have done, and now we're back in a position where we're able to. So that's where I stand with it, and I'll always be open with you guys, telling you when I'm buying, selling. But yeah, I'm holding this, guys. I'm not selling XDC, no chance, for a few years at least. So you're stuck with me in these XDC videos until then. So guys, that's going to wrap that one up there. I'm going to try and do a couple more videos tomorrow morning before work starts, and then we'll get into a bit more of a rhythm, trying to get more out this week for you guys. So thank you for watching. As I said, leave comments below about XDC XinFin in general, your opinions, your thoughts, your excitements, or even concerns maybe. Let's take a look, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Take care, and bye bye.